today's session is about preparing an annual RPPR and submitting it through the eRA Commons. For those who may not have interface to the eRA Commons, I'm sure there may be a session later on or something offered later about how to access the eRA Commons and how to register your organization. But for today's purpose, we'll talk about the RPPR. So the first question is, what is this thing called the RPPR? And like I had said earlier, the Americans like using short form. So RPPR in full is Research Performance Progress Report. And it's a tool used by grantees to submit progress reports to the NIH on their grant awards. So you have gotten the money, you're carrying out the activities, but at the end of the day, you will have to report. And we're going to see how many times you report, how frequently you report, depends on the type of grant that you have. So there are three types of RPPRs, and all of which use that RPPR instruction guide. At the end of this session, I'm sure Claire will share these slides, and you'll find more information about the RPPR on that guide. There's a link there. So the first type of RPPRs is the annual RPPR. And this is used to describe the grant's scientific progress, any significant changes, are there any new personnel, and also tell them about your plans for the next budget period or your next budget year. And this is the most common RPPR for those who have grants running for more than a year. The other one is the final RPPR, and as the name suggests, it's used during the closeout process, where you submit the project outcomes in addition to the information that you had been submitting in the annual RPPR, except the budget and the plans for the upcoming year, because it comes at the end. And then the interim RPPR is used when submitting a renewal or what we call a type 2 application. And if the type 2 application is not funded, then the interim RPPR will serve as the final RPPR for that project. If it is funded, then that interim RPPR will serve as the annual RPPR for the final year of the previous competitive segment. So for instance, if you have been awarded a grant and then you want to for 2 years and then you want to renew for another 2 years. So if it is not funded, the interim RPPR for that second year will serve as the final RPPR. But if it is funded, then that interim RPPR will serve as the annual RPPR for year 2. Okay, so when submitting the RPPR is submitted through the eRA Commons, and the links for each type of those RPPRs that we talked about previously are accessed through the eRA Commons status tab. But the final RPPR's link will only become available during project closeout. Then who submits the RPPR? It is only the PI who can submit the RPPR, or they can delegate someone, for instance, an administrator of the grant, to initiate the RPPR. In case it's a multiple PD or PI grant, then only the contact PI, for instance, if you have a grant in Uganda as well as the US, the contact PI is the only one who can submit the RPPR. So the sub grantees will only submit reporting information to the contact PI, who will then submit, initiate the RPPR. However, it is only the signing official or a PI who has been delegated by the signing official who is allowed to submit the RPPR. And we'll see that when we get into the eRA Commons. And then when do you submit the RPPRs? And just like the types of RPPRs indicate, there are different dates when you submit the RPPRs. There are some grants which have SNAP, which has streamlined non-competing award process notices of award whose RPPRs are due 45 days before the next budget period start date. The non-SNAP RPPRs, which are more common, are due approximately 60 days before the next budget period start date. So if your grant year runs from 1st January to 31st December, then 60 days before 1st January would be 2 months before. So you should submit your RPPR at the end of October. Then a multi-year funded RPPRs are due annually or on or before the anniversary of the budget or project period start date of the award. And whereas the interim and final RPPRs are due 120 days from the period of performance end date for only the competitive segment. So how do we access the RPPR? And like we've mentioned, the RPPR is accessed through the eRA Commons. So in order to access the eRA Commons, you will go to the eRA Commons page and log in using your credentials. But like we had mentioned earlier, the RPPR can only be initiated by the PI or the person who has been delegated by the PI. So log in using the username and password. And then once you've logged in, you'll go to status, which is highlighted here. And once you click status, there'll be a tab at the top of the Commons page, one of which indicates the RPPR. So all you would have to do is click on that, and it will bring you to the RPPR page. Are we still together, Claire? I just want to make sure I'm not leaving anyone behind or I have not dropped off.
We are still together, Arnold.
Okay, thank you. So the next phase after you have logged in into the eRA Commons is to edit the RPPR. So once you click on that RPPR form, it will take you to manage your RPPR. So I'm going to start calling it a report because RPPR sounds weird. So if you're a PI, at the bottom here, you'll see a number of awards. In this case, this PI, whose names I have for security purposes covered and award number covered, has one grant. But if you have 5, you'll see 5 grant numbers here if they are due for RPPR submission or report submission. So in this case, there's only one, and you go down and click on that award number for that report. And once you click on that award number, it will bring you to this page. At the top, it will show you the award number, the institution, the PI's name, title, the due date when the report is due. The current reviewer in this case is the person who has logged in and is editing the report. And the status will be, it's a work in progress. So at the bottom here, there are a number of tabs. One is edit, then you can check for errors. You can view the report, view routing history, route it, recall, submit, and cancel. We'll talk about all these tabs. So for purposes of editing the RPPR, you will click on this edit button. And once you click on the edit button, you will now start editing the form. So the form is split into a number of sections, and the first one is the cover page. As you can see at the top, the sections about 1, 2, 3, from A to H. So the cover page is really a summary of your grant. It just shows you the award number, here, the project title, that's whose report you're submitting, who the PI is, the organization name, address, DUNS number, EIN, and recipient ID. Then it will also show you, in addition, it will show you if on the first page, are you changing the contact PD on a multiple PI award? If yes, then you provide the commons ID of the new PD. Then it will show you the signing official information, the start dates, end date, reporting period, and all that. So that's the cover page. Then section B is about accomplishments. So now here you are actually editing and writing your report. So section B has B1, where they're asking you, what are the major goals of your project? And they're asking you to list the major goals of your projects. In this case, the major goals are equivalent to specific aims. So if your project has 4 specific aims, what you have to do in this field is indicate your specific aims. If you have 5, indicate them. If you have 2, indicate your specific aims there. And then B1A says, have the major goals changed since the initial computing award or the previous report? If you have changed them, state yes, and then there will be a field for you to say, we've added another goal, or we have merged specific aim 1 and 2 to form this. But remember, this is only for the period you are reporting for. It's not an overall change. B2 is about accomplishments. What was accomplished under these goals? So let's say for this report, describe the major activities, specific objectives, significant results, including major findings, developments, or conclusions, both positive and negative. Key outcomes include a discussion of stated goals not met. So for this one, you will have to write your accomplishments on a separate page and then attach it here. You just write it somewhere and then upload the accomplishments. So it is advisable that when you're writing the accomplishments, you go specific aim by aim. So for instance, if aim 1 is talking about capacity building, then you report whatever has been done under capacity building for that period. If there are trainings, if there are exchange programs, you talk about them and give as much detail as you can. Then you go on to the second aim and talk about it, and then the third aim as you go along. B3 is about competitive revisions or administrative supplements. Asking if you have any administrative supplement in the current year you are reporting for. For instance, for my program, we got a supplement in year 3. So if I was reporting for year 3, which we have done, I indicated that you indicate the supplement number, what was the title of the supplement, what were its aims, and what accomplishments have you had for this supplement in this period. B4 is about opportunities for training and professional development. And if the research is not intended to provide training and professional development opportunities, or there is nothing significant to report during this period, state nothing to report. This is common for grants that may be clinical trials or that are not specifically on training and professional development. However, if you have training and professional development as part of your objectives, then you will need to indicate what you have done to develop capacity among staff. So this is also an attachment on its own, which you will write up somewhere else and then attach. At the end of this presentation, I'll show you a sample of our annual report. So B5, how have the results been disseminated to communities of interest? You indicate what you have done in terms of dissemination. Have you organized the dissemination conference? Do you have any press releases or put any information out there in newspapers and websites for this particular year? And then B6 is about what do you plan to do during the next reporting period to accomplish the goal? So they're asking you what are your targets for the next period? And you will indicate that in this space here. So that is it for accomplishments. C is about the products. And the products in this case, what have you been able to develop as part of your grant for the year you are reporting? Do you have any publications, that is C1? Are there publications or manuscripts accepted for publication in a journal or other publication during the reporting period resulting directly from this award? So here, especially regarding publications, publications sometimes take quite a while to eventually, manuscripts take a while to be published. So in this case, you will only report about any manuscripts that have been published during the period or accepted for publication during the period. If you have just submitted, you do not need to indicate that here. Websites or other internet sites, list the URL for any internet sites that disseminates the results of the research activities. If you have a website that disseminates information or research reports, you will share the URL here. Technologies or techniques. Have you developed any new technologies? Do you have any patents that have been created, that is for C4 and or licenses? And then do you have any other products and resource sharing? All this is about products, and that is section C. Then resource sharing, if the initial research plan is addressed, all the terms of award require a formal plan for sharing final research data, model organisms, or other such project-specific data. Describe the process, the progress in implementing that plan. So usually when you are submitting a grant or a grant application, there will be one of the documents you submit is a resource sharing plan where you indicate if you have any products out of your research and there are two different organizations that are collaborating or collaborating institutions, how will you share the resources? So what they're asking for here is indicate how you are responding to that initial resource sharing plan. And okay, so that was C. D is about participants. Okay. So participants really is individuals that have worked on the project. And in this case, you are showing the people, the personnel. So what level of effort, D2, will there be in the next budget period, either a reduction in the level of effort or a reduction in the level of effort below the minimum amount of effort? If there are any changes in the level of effort, for instance, you're going from year 2 to year 3, but maybe your data manager will have an increment in his or her effort or a reduction, then you will indicate that. If there is someone who is dropping off, you also indicate that and give an explanation. Then 2B is about new or senior or key personnel. Will there be new senior or key personnel? And senior or key personnel are explained here. There are those who are identified by the grantee institution as individuals who contribute in a substantive, measurable way to the scientific development or execution of the project, whether or not salaries are requested. So do you have a new copy I, even if salary has not been requested? Do you have maybe a new data manager? Do you have a new lab personnel? So that is about the senior or key personnel. If there is any change, then you will indicate that. And then if there's one who is new, then you attach their bio sketches. And please be sure to attach the most updated bio sketch format. Then 2C is about changes in other support. Now, other support in this case refers to, for instance, if you have a PI who has another grant, if you're in year 3, 2020 to 2021, and along the way your PI or one of the co-PIs gets a new grant, that is other support. So that's what they call active other support. So if yes, upload active other support for senior or key personnel whose support has changed and indicate what the change has been. So if there's a senior or key personnel who has maybe gotten a new grant or is listed as personnel on another grant and has substantial effort there, then you will indicate. There is a format for other support that the NIH uses, which you will also attach here. Are there or will there be new other significant contributors? And other significant contributors are individuals who have committed to contribute to the scientific development or execution of the project, but are not committing any specified measurable effort to the project. So you may have those people who are contributing to the project, but not necessarily earning any income or any pay. And then 2E is about multiple or multi-PI leadership plan. Will there be a change in a multi-PI leadership plan for the next budget period? And change in status requires prior approval. So for example, we recently had a change in PI, co-PI, where the co-PI in the US was stepping down and another co-PI was suggested. So in this case, we had to write to the NIH, and upon getting approval from the NIH, then developed a new leadership plan. So if yes, upload a revised leadership plan that includes a description of the change. So you will indicate the new leadership plan of how the work is going to be shared. Section E is about the impact that your project has had on the project, on the community or the people that you are supporting. So you realize for different grants, some of the fields may not be applicable. For instance, this was a training grant. So you'll find that section E1 maybe was not applicable to this as a training grant. So the form is general, but depending on the type of grant that you have and if it's a K, if it's a T, if it's an R, the fields will be different. So E2 is about what the impact on physical or institutional or information resources that form infrastructure. And describe ways, if any, in which the project has made an impact or is likely to make an impact on physical, institutional, and information resources. For instance, physical resources, have you built any facilities or any labs? Have you purchased any lab equipment or instruments? Institutional resources, such as establishment of or sustenance of societies, organizations. For instance, IDRC could decide to make this G11 or output of this G11 into a society of research administrators in Uganda. So have you established that? And that's what you report here. Information resources, electronic means. Have you purchased any ebooks or shared ebooks, any electronic material? So that's what you would report in this space. What dollar amount of the awards budget is being spent in foreign countries? And this is typical of grants that have been, in Uganda are primed. Like I had mentioned earlier, it is only the contact PI who submits the RPPR. So if the grant was awarded to an institution in Uganda, it is the PI in Uganda who will submit the progress report. If it was awarded to an institution outside Uganda, then it is the PI outside Uganda who will submit the progress report. And in that case, they will indicate how much of that sub award comes to Uganda or to that other country. So that's the purpose of this field. So if it was if 200,000 was awarded to maybe Harvard University in the US, but 10,000 for the following year goes to IDRC or Makerere, then they will indicate 10,000 here as the dollar amount that is being spent in a foreign country. If the award was the other way around, where 200,000 comes to MUST as the grant, but of the 200,000, 10,000 is for Harvard, then we'll indicate the 200 or 190,000 that is being spent in a foreign country. And in this case, foreign country is foreign to the USA or to the awarding institution. So if 200,000 was awarded to MUST, then 200,000 is what is in it. Section F is about changes. Are there any changes to the grant? Do you have any actual or anticipated challenges or delays? And what are the actions or plans to resolve them? I know for most of us, COVID has been the easiest excuse. So the biggest challenges that we have encountered are the challenges posed by COVID. However, the funders are also wise enough to say that if you have any challenges, the second part of the question is, what are your actions or plans to resolve them? So you have to indicate a challenge that you have, and then your plan to resolve that challenge. If it is COVID that has affected your trainings, what have you done to make sure the trainings go on? Like IDRC is having trainings, virtual training. So that could be an action to resolve those challenges and many other challenges. This is about human subjects, vertebrate animals. Are there any significant changes or deviations or unexpected outcomes? Do you have serious adverse events that you need to report about regarding human subjects or animals? Are there any if the use of biohazards is or will be different from the previous submission, provide a description and explanation of the difference. So if you don't have any of these, you'll just indicate no change. And section G is about special reporting requirements. And special reporting requirements really are from your notice of award. If you look at your notice of award, at the end of the notice of award or somewhere towards the end, there will be a section on the special notice of award terms and requirements. So you will need to report about them here. If you have them, if there's anything that you need to report about that was highlighted in the notice of award, then you will need to report about it here. If G4 human subjects, the project is not coded as human subject research. If you have human subjects that you need to report about, then you report about them here. And anything that they point to. Human subjects education requirement, are there personnel on this project who are or will be newly involved in the design or conduct of human subjects research? If you do have them, then you will need to provide their names and then indicate the education program that they've completed. For instance, have they undergone responsible conduct of research training or good clinical practices training? Then in one sentence, describe that program. What has the program done for them? How has it benefited them? G6 is about human embryonic stem cells. If you have that, you need to provide the necessary information. Vertebrate animals, does the project involve vertebrate animals? Yes or no? Project performance sites. In most cases, if the grant has been awarded, the project performance sites will have already been indicated. So if it is both in, for instance, Bara University and another institution in the US, both those organization names will be indicated here. So if it's a continuation or an annual RPPR, you'll find those sites here and you will not need to change them. However, if you're adding any new site, for instance, you're taking on another institution in the US or in Uganda, then you'll add the organization name, DUNS number, the city, state, country, and then click on add new. And it will be added to the list of project or performance sites. Then foreign component is defined as significant scientific activity that was performed outside of the United States, either by the grantee or by a researcher employed by a foreign organization, whether or not grant funds were expended. So they've given a description of grant-related activities which are significant and must be reported. And I must indicate that as long as you are outside the United States, please indicate that there's a foreign component and just describe any of the activities that you have done. Human subjects or research with live vertebrate animals. Is there foreign travel by our D project staff to collect data or conduct surveys? Or any awardee activity that may have an impact on US foreign policy. Examples of other award-related activities include collaborations with investigators at foreign sites, anticipated to result in co-authorship, use of facilities or instrumentation at a foreign site, or receipt of financial support or resources from a foreign entity. And for many of the collaborative projects, we fall very well under this last bullet. So you'll need to indicate the organization name, it's Mbarara University, Makerere University, indicate the country and describe anything that has anything to do with the United States. You receive collaborators from the United States, do you receive exchange students, do you receive funding on a routine basis from the US? That is about the foreign component. And then there's a tricky part here which usually gives so many problems. It is the estimated unobligated balance. And the question is it anticipated that unestimated unobligated balance, including prior year carryover, will be greater than 25% of the current year's total approved budget? And you need to indicate yes or no. So basically what they're asking for is if you have funds that were carried over from year one into year two, and while you are submitting this report for year two, you estimate that there may be funds which will still be carried over into year three, and they are greater than 25% of the total current year's approved budget, where the approved budget includes the current year's funding amount, as well as what was carried from year one. So you will need to indicate how much money that is and how much that is greater than 25% of the current year's total approved budget. And that is what you will indicate here. And they go on to say, provide an explanation for the unobligated balance. So you need to explain why that balance is being carried forward. And the reason why it is called estimated unobligated balance is that, remember, you are submitting this annual report 60 days to the end of the grant period. So you really haven't gotten a chance to spend all the money. But what they're saying is, do you estimate that even if you are submitting this report at the end of the project year, there will be some money unspent, which you haven't dedicated to certain activities. So they'll ask you for an explanation and you need to give reasons why. Maybe due to COVID, you couldn't get people to travel to Uganda or out of Uganda. You couldn't invite certain people, you couldn't purchase certain equipment because of bans on imports, so something of the sort. And then part C is saying, if authorized to carry over that balance, provide a general description of how it is anticipated that those funds will be spent. So they need you to show that, yes, if we've given you permission to carry over those funds into year 3, show us how you are going to spend those funds. And to determine whether you are authorized to carry over funds, you need to see your notice of award. Some notices of award will tell you carry over is automatic. Some of them will say you need to ask for approval from the program officer. Then 11 is about program income. Is program income anticipated during the next budget period? Program income is any income that you expect or think you'll get as the program or the grant goes along. And if yes, use the format below to reflect the amount and where you're getting that money from. For instance, you may be running a grant and along the way you get additional funding from another funder or another grant disbursing entity to do exactly the same work. So that is program income. Then F&A costs, is there a change in performance sites that will affect F&A costs? We saw that point where you indicate your performance sites. If you're adding another performance site and their F&A is different from what you have in the budget, you need to indicate that and provide an explanation below why you need that organization. Okay, and lastly is the budget. So the budget really is the budget for the next period. So part H will be the budget form. There's a drop down that will ask you to select the budget type. Depending on the grant type that you have, there will be specific budget types. So in most cases, the most common one is the SF424, the research and related budget. So click on that and then add budget and it will add it there. Then if you have a sub-award with another entity, you do the same. Click that, drop down, select the R&R sub-award budget, and then add. And then in order to edit that budget, you will click on the edit button. And once you click on the edit button, it will bring you the budget. I will not take a lot of time on the budget because this has been discussed before. So I'll just go over it. The budget really just shows you where to put what. For the senior or key person. If it's the PI, you put that PI there. And remember, you're not getting these figures from your head. Remember, you have a budget that has already been approved. So all you're doing is picking figures from an already approved budget, but figures specifically to this year or the year that you're getting into. So if there are other personnel, you indicate them there. If there's any equipment, travel, participant or trainee support costs, other direct costs, indirect costs, you have the budget justification, and that's it. So once all that is done, you are going to go back to the RPPR menu. Claire, are we still together?
Yes, Arnold, we are together.
Okay, all right, just about to wind up. So as we are editing the RPPR, remember we clicked on the edit button. Now on the menu, just like all other forms are, there are so many times you'll have errors, you'll have warnings, you'll miss out a few figures here and there, or a few fields to fill in. So you could just do a validation and say, let me check for errors. And once you click on check for errors, it will tell you that maybe on products, you didn't provide this information and yet you had checked a certain field. So it will tell you where all the errors are. Then there's a view button, which will help you view the report as it looks. Once you click on that button, the system will generate a PDF file of what your final report will look like, and I'm going to share with you one of our reports, and just to show you what it looks like. So just like we had mentioned, yes, the PI has the authority to fill in or initiate the RPPR, but unless delegated by the signing official of the institution, he or she cannot submit the progress report. So after filling in all the information, you've checked for errors, you've viewed, you've seen the report, you see what it looks like, and you're okay with it. You click on the route button, and route now asks you who to send this report to. So the next reviewer, in this case, there was a drop down. In this case, our signing official is Margaret. So if you click on this next reviewer, if you have any comments to put in, you put in and then click submit. So when you click the submit button, it is not going to NIH direct. The report is now going to this signing official. And this signing official has the powers to look to either reject it and tell you, no, you haven't filled a certain, there's a section you haven't filled in, or there's some information that is still missing. Please fill it in and resubmit. Or if it is okay, then that signing official will then be the one to submit the report to the NIH.
My question is one, on section D, when you're going through the impact, when you're filling in the impact that the project has had, I'm thinking, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the impact that you fill in there is as a result of the objectives or the aims of the project. So my question is, assuming there are some things or impacts or achievements that the project has registered, but some of that impact probably was not funded from that project budget. It could have been an achievement as a result of an alternative funding, but the project achieved it. Whether it was initially part or whether it was initially an objective in the study or not, am I obliged to report that achievement even if the project did not directly fund it?
For NIH, that is an advantage. And for any funder, for anything to have been achieved, which was even out of the funding that was awarded, is a plus. And for them, that is what they call spillovers. So you have activities that you set out to do, but while you are doing them, maybe you achieved even more than you had achieved. That is a plus definitely for the funder. What needs to come out clearly is that that achievement or that output should be directly related to this funding. I'll give you an example. We set out to admit 3 students in our year 3, but because the program maybe was very attractive, we ended up admitting 6 students. So while we are reporting about the 3 students, it's a plus to tell the funder that this program that we designed, in addition to admitting the 3 students that we wanted, it was attractive enough to admit 6 students or 3 additional students. So that's a testament to maybe the program's sustainability, and it could also help you if you are looking for a renewal of the project.
Thank you, Ronald. That was precise.
Okay, I just want to go over what the final report would look like. So I hope you can all see the screen. This is very sensitive information, so please don't keep it in your memory. I'm just showing you an overview. So once you click that view button that I showed you, the system automatically generates for you an RPPR in PDF form. And this is what it looks like. So you have the cover page like I showed you. Then you have the accomplishment page, and these are the fields that this is the information that you filled in the form. But any other attachment that you put that is related to section B will come immediately after that. So you can see the accomplishments come immediately after that section. And so like I was saying, it would be good to indicate your accomplishments objective by objective or aim by aim. Show what you have done for each aim, break it down, give as much information as possible as for it's to your benefit. So that's what the report would look like. You go to see the projects, products, efforts, and what have you, impact. Yeah, so this is what the report would look like. If any special reporting requirements, if there's an attachment to show, it's anything to do with RCR, project performance site. So after that section, it will show all the attachments following that section will follow in that order. If you have, like where you indicated that someone has undertaken training in RCR, or please indicate a certificate and attach it. Yeah, so really that is what your report would look like.
Yeah, thank you very much for the comments. So I guess we've come to the end of today's lunchtime seminar. Thank you very much for your input and interaction on the group chat. Bye for now.